I go down the rabbit hole on YouTube, right? I just jump down the rabbit hole, go, oh, that looks interesting. And then you see the recipes or you see the description, and you're like, I don't have any of that stuff. How can I make it work? I saw on a Facebook page the other day, I'm retiring from fluid art because I just don't get it. Well, of course not. The recipes are way too complicated. The financial commitment is huge. Why would you do that? So let's just strip it all down. We'll try to demystify the deconstructed bloom as best I can. And I'm gonna warn you now, it's not the best deconstructed bloom anybody's ever done. We all start somewhere. And this is me starting somewhere. So I hope you'll join me. So I'm going to start by laying down my pillow, and my pillow is just my Amsterdam titanium white mixed with my regular pouring medium. And that actually allows me to torch out any air bubbles that appear, as opposed to setting my house on fire if I was to use regular house paint. And my little puddles of color, they're just, again, my regular Amsterdam tube paints mixed with my pouring medium. And in some cases I did add some metallics and my iridescent medium by Winsor Newton, which I'll put down in the description below, just to give it a little bit more of an iridescent feel, because I don't use this Little Piggy Went Home pigments and Josana varnish and all that complicated stuff. And if you're wondering, I mixed them pretty much the same consistency as I did my pillow paint. However, that was mistake number one. My pillow paint should have slightly been thicker than my other colors. Now, I didn't compromise on the cell activator. I did bust out the Australian Floetrol, and I made two colors, a black one and a white one. I'm not quite sure why I decided to use two. I guess I just wanted to see kind of what would happen. So that's just oxide black and titanium white by Amsterdam. I'm not at the point of experimenting with alternatives for cell activator. And now I'm just going to start blowing it out and let's see what happens. And as you can see, the cells are forming, so that's 100% attributed to the Australian Floetrol. However, in hindsight, I probably should have either A, put the black on top and the white on the bottom, or just not use the white at all, because that white center section is just a little overwhelming for me. Again, my pillow wasn't thick enough, but you know what? This is not a bad first attempt, considering I didn't have all those fancy ingredients on hand. So I'm just going to tilt it around. You will note, though, as you keep watching before I turn up the music, I didn't put enough pillow down. That was another fault on my part. So I didn't have enough left over to be able to stretch this kind of the way that I wanted to. So it did compromise the composition a little bit. And also when I was blowing out the center section, I think that it pushes too much paint, and then that center section ends up being really, really thin. Again, probably because my pillow's not quite thick enough, because you can see the paint kind of just rolls on top of each other. But again, still not a bad first try for a wrecked bloom or deconstructed bloom, whatever you want to call it. And if you're wondering why I use such a large canvas, I got this 50 by 50 centimeter relatively cheap, and I really wanted to test and see how the paint actually moved and stretched. And I wasn't convinced that doing this on a smaller 20 by 20 centimeter that I would get the full effect of what would actually happen. And as I was making this first bloom, pseudo bloom, whatever, I thought, you know what, this is going to be the first of a series. So I hope that you've liked, subscribed, and turned on those notifications, because I intend to make a series of me developing my skills on doing a modified bloom technique. And I have to admit, I loved the softness of how this actually turned out in the end. You know you love too deep. You know you love too deep. Take it away, feeling too good to me. Chilling all day, all in your space is where I wanna be. Here in this room, what did you do? I just can't get enough. Too caught up in your love. I've been trying to forget, but you won't let me. Something in my brain wants you. I've been hanging by myself, asking for help, but nothing seems to work on you. Yeah, you always make me feel like home. Yeah, you never leave my thoughts alone. Yeah, you're the reason I'm going out my mind. I just can't stop thinking about you.
all that I crave when you're away. Nights are sleepless. Do we need space? Yeah, maybe a break. Boy, you're my weakness. Give and we take, the love that we make, it's my favorite drug. Too caught up in your love. I've been trying to forget, but you won't let me. Something in my brain wants you. I've been hanging by myself, asking for help, but nothing seems to work on you. Yeah, you always make me feel like home. Yeah, you never leave my thoughts alone. Yeah, you're the reason I'm going out my mind. I just can't stop thinking about you. You got me feeling some type of way. You make me wanna stay in all day. You're the reason I can't get out my head. I just can't stop thinking about you. I just can't stop thinking about you.
That's cool. How do they do that? But I don't have any of that stuff. I've got some tube paints and I've got water out of my tap. I decided that I wanted to learn, not necessarily how to do a bloom. I don't like the blooms. Yeah, I said that out loud. Yeah, I'm not a big bloom fan. Karen at Waterfall Acrylics, and I've seen other artists do it too, the Deconstructed Bloom. I like that look. Flowers aren't my jam. I mean, I like flowers. Yeah, flowers are cool.